Most cost of living videos start with some type of median home prices or some type of statistic like, did you know that Northwest Arkansas has 11 to 17% lower cost of living than national average? I can tell you those types of things, my friend. But the people that I work with, especially maybe a little bit later up in years in life, are not concerned so much about the actual cost, the dollars and cents of where they're living. They're not trying to answer that question anymore. What my clients are trying to figure out now is, will a move simplify their life or will it complicate it even further? So today I want to reframe the conversation. This is not a cheap places to live video, although yes, if you're looking for somewhere cost effective to live in Northwest Arkansas, you can live very expensively and you can live very cost effectively. That said, this is a cost of lifestyle video versus a cost of living video, and of course updated for 2026. And just so we're aligned from the start, this video is for people who can choose to live anywhere and are choosing to do so carefully. If that sounds like you, my friend, let's keep moving. Not all of my clients, but many of my clients are in the same stage of life. Yes, I've helped those that are single and 22, 23 years old buy their first home, all the way to folks that are like, hey, Anthony, we're in our 90s. We can't manage our household anymore. We're going to go live with the kids. I've sold those properties. So most of my clients tend to range in that 40, 50, and plus, the well-seasoned folks of life. Many people like you, you're not slowing down. You're still working, consulting, sitting on boards, investing, and perhaps running your own business. But what I tend to find is most of my clients are just done with how much friction they have in life. They've lived in places where everything seems louder than it needs to be. It's complicated and there's a constant rub or looking over your shoulder, where congestion, noise, and unpredictability are just a part of their daily life. People have told me about how much excessive traffic, homelessness, or crime that they're ready to just get away from to just simply live life easier. And at some point, maybe you're at that point right now, do I really have to live the rest of my life in hard mode? Depending on where you are coming from in the country, do you really want to live in a place where it hurts your face to be outside? Northwest Arkansas tends to attract people that are looking for clarity, margin, and control, not chaos. If you're someone who values quality over flash, substance over status, and intentional living over constant stimulation, this area can probably resonate deeply with you. So already you might be getting the feel this is more of a cost of lifestyle versus a actual tangible cost of living. But of course, as a broker, I would be amiss if we didn't talk a little bit about housing. Whether you're leasing, renting, or buying, housing is an actual cost. So let's talk housing, but let's not talk price per square foot. One of the biggest surprises for people moving to the area is how intentional their housing choices end up being. I regularly work with clients who can certainly afford more home, but they're asking questions not as much how much home can we buy, they're asking how do we want to live day to day. Phrases that I hear them often saying is, we're looking for one level living. We want to live on the lake and see the water lapping up against the dock every day. We want to live on a golf course or in a home with thoughtful layouts and not crammed in next to neighbors. We'd like to have maybe a little elbow room in our new home. Speaking of new homes, new construction all over Northwest Arkansas allows you the ability to not have to manage so much of the outside or even inside of the home. You're not worried about the furnace breaking down because it's brand new, maybe a couple years old. That said, new construction becomes more appealing not because it's flashy and it's the new and greatest thing, but because it becomes more predictable on a day-to-day basis. You'll have fewer surprises, lower maintenance curves, more time spent enjoying life versus managing it. And you may have heard a phrase, my friend, this isn't necessarily downsizing, this is right-sizing. And I have to always pause right there and say, right-sizing doesn't necessarily mean changing your square footage. It might just mean the functionality of the house has changed based on where you are in your stage of life, based on what life has brought you recently and what you can predictably see for the foreseeable future. Let me drill down on that and tell you what I mean. Let's talk about a 4-bed, 3-bath, 3-car garage that's 3,500 square feet. That's a big home, probably has extra rooms like an office or an extra living room or maybe a workout room. But maybe now you're in a stage of life that, yeah, square footage, we do need to right size. We don't need 3,500 square feet with a 4-bed, 3-bath, 3-car garage, but we still need a 4-bed, 3-bath, 3-car garage. But more so for life has changed on a single level, 1,000 less square feet to clean, to maintain, to pay taxes on, to improve, to update, to not update. Conversely, many clients I have found are actually buying bigger homes because of this fact. They decided, hey, you know what, let's retire, let's downsize into a 2-bed, 2-bath condo. But now life has changed and they're living where family is. They're living where friends want to come visit. Northwest Arkansas, many people come and spring break here. They spend summers here. Not needing those 4-bed, 3-bath, 3-car garage necessarily for their own family, but they have a room specifically for their grandkids or the nieces and nephews to come stay when they come visit. Or perhaps it might be a different change in life where the matriarch of the family used to go to their house for Christmas and Easter and Sunday dinners. Now you're going to be hosting that in your house. You need a larger dining room or you need a larger living and dining space to be able to host more people because now you're the one that's going to be bringing the family together. Final point before we move on to the next section is many of my clients actually choose to invest more on the house they end up with because of the lifestyle that it provides. Now we're going to move on to an even more fun section. And as you know, there are two things certain in life, and those are death and taxes, and we're going to talk about taxes today. Certainly taxes matter, but we're going to again take a different approach to the actual cost of taxes and talk about why they matter, but in a different sense. But before we get into, you have to understand, I am not an accountant, I am not an economist, I'm a real estate broker that happens to know just a little bit about taxes here in Arkansas. Most people moving here are trying to game the system or chase loopholes, but they're certainly being more intentional when it comes to asset management and maybe wealth transfer. What I find people want are fewer variables that they have to try to figure out. For instance, if you're coming from a place like California or Illinois, you have higher tax rates, structural budget volatility, bond layers, different complexities to your taxes that you're having to basically try to hit a moving target. I've heard people explain Northwest Arkansas taxes as it's manageable and it's clean. There's fewer layers, fewer surprises, and fewer changes without warning. Of course, yes, we're going to reassess property taxes. It's actually county record. It's going to show you every time that they're going to reassess properties, about every 3 to 5 years. It's actually written into our tax law. And yes, there are policies that change, but they're slow and a bit more predictable, not as rapidly and quick changing. This helps clients, maybe people like you, help to be a bit mentally lighter when it comes to your taxes and trying to figure out what that looks like. Because I know, my friend, you're watching this video and you're thinking about legacy planning, asset transfer, items like, how do I transfer my generational wealth without being severely taxed about it? Well, you might be interested to know that Arkansas has no estate tax and no inheritance tax. Arkansas has no local income tax or is taxed at the state level, with a graduated income tax bracket that is predictable and understandable and not constantly changing. As a bit of a recap, folks like you that are looking for clarity and predictability, that simplicity is incredibly attractive. Okay, enough about taxes. Let's talk about another cost of lifestyle that many people factor in is their medical costs. Of course, the cost of lifestyle we're talking about is not necessarily, again, the tangible dollar amount, but the accessibility you might have to a general practitioner or a specialist, for instance. Healthcare is one of those topics that people avoid until it becomes central. What surprises many people after they move here, again, isn't cost, but it's access. There are certain specialists that are not here in Northwest Arkansas. You might have to travel up to Springfield, go down to Dallas or Little Rock. As for instance, my family, I've said it in a couple videos now, is my daughter is deaf in her right ear and she needs a specialist for her cochlear implant, and we don't have that level of specialty care that we appreciate. We need to go all the way down to Little Rock. But in the general scheme of things, appointments feel attainable. Most specialists are reachable, and you're not spending half the day trying to navigate the system. So this isn't necessarily about getting older, it's about the continuity of care. What I have found many of my clients telling me is, Anthony, wherever life takes us, we want to make sure that the healthcare infrastructure, wherever we end up, is already there. So as we are a growing marketplace, understand that there is quite a bit of access that you have here. But as we're continuing to grow, more and more specialists and more training is coming to Northwest Arkansas. As we are a growing metro, you might take comfort in knowing that high quality care exists without the chaos of major systems. In fact, Axios has recently ranked Northwest Arkansas, specifically Benton County, as the healthiest county in the entire state of Arkansas. One of the most overlooked cost of living expenses, and now we're again talking about cost of lifestyle, is the transfer of risk. So if you guessed it already, we're going to talk a little bit about insurance. Insurance companies exist because they will, for a fee, for a premium, they will take on that risk for you. Now, of course, insurance and cost of living has increased across the country. Everybody that's been paying attention has noticed a cost of living increase, and insurance is no different. Many of my clients have told me that insurance volatility has become extremely exhausting. They're coming from places that are prime for earthquakes, extreme floods, or they might be coming from coastal cities and coastal states worried about hurricanes and insurance premiums going up each year. As we've had more and more storms and more history is telling us, rising premiums, coverage uncertainty, and regulatory shifts could very well impact the wealth that you've generated over the last few decades. As we're looking at managing wealth that we've attained over life, if we're going to pay the insurance company to take care of our home if something were to happen, and then some regulations change, that catastrophic event happens and the insurance company won't cover it, you're having to deplete your wealth either to walk away from that property or to take that on personally. That was the whole point of transferring risk to the insurance company. Whereas here in Arkansas, what I hear people telling me is that, no, we're not immune to risk. We certainly have tornadoes that come through and hailstorms that come through, but it feels insulated compared to many high exposure markets that we had already mentioned. And that, again, that insulation creates a bit more a peace of mind, a quieter mind, where you're not worried as much about those catastrophic events type happening, but also planning and managing that risk that could potentially take place here in Arkansas. Earlier, I had mentioned infrastructure, and that's something we definitely need to talk about here in Northwest Arkansas as a growing cost. Now, in my opinion, there are two sides of the story when it comes to the way that you as an individual can look at infrastructure. On one side of the chart, you have people that are looking at the fact that Arkansas utilities are below the national average. Anywhere from electricity, gas prices, food costs, road maintenance, all tend to be part of a lower cost of living when it comes to infrastructure. Now, on the other side of the chart, there are certainly growing pains. That road construction causes you more time to get to work or to school or wherever you're trying to get to. But on both sides of the chart certainly needs to be investment for future growth. There's no stopping the growth that's happening here in Northwest Arkansas. Northwest Arkansas Council reported that not too long ago, 37 to 40 people a day are moving to Northwest Arkansas. And so we're going to continue to grow. If you're on the more positive side of the chart, you know that maybe new doctor specialists are coming, or maybe new restaurants, or maybe new shopping is coming. On the more negative side of the chart, you know that that means more road construction. It means maybe a higher property tax. What I hear my clients telling me is, Anthony, utilities are predictable, our internet is reliable, and municipal services function as expected. Now, I have to pause when they say municipal services function as intended. I maybe need to drill down on that a little bit more with them. As someone who grew up in Michigan and lived part of my adult life in Minnesota, the municipal services around here, they don't know how to use a plow truck and the salt and the slurry that they have available to them. But I'm not a municipal worker. I don't have anything to do with that. They're just not doing it maybe the way that Anthony would do it as someone who's seen it done for a majority of his life.
Now, I hope that'll learn you.
Hey, but I'm getting a little off track here, but it's nice to know that the systems are really essentially boring and allow you to focus on what actually matters. I don't know about how your family operates, but we have kind of a lifestyle line item in our budget. What does that look like for our vacations or our going out on dates or going out to the movies? What does that look like for your lifestyle budget? Many of my clients that are moving from other states like California, Colorado, Utah, they want to continue going mountain biking or skiing. Now, granted, we don't have any skiing here in Northwest Arkansas, but let's talk about mountain biking, for example. But before we do, of course, I have to give a shout out to Northwest Arkansas. U.S. News, World Report, and multiple different sources have said Northwest Arkansas consistently ranks at the top of the list for best places to live in America. Many of my clients tell me, Anthony, I'm driving an hour to get to where the mountain biking or hiking is, and then I have to fight for a parking spot. I could drive to 4 different mountain biking trail systems, all within 15 to 20 minutes of my house, and I can find a parking spot like that. Now, granted, if it's one of those absolutely beautiful spring days on a Sunday afternoon, yeah, those areas can be very well packed, but they're not packed 24/7 to where you can't go enjoy them. And yes, you might not be a mountain biker or a hiker, but there are plenty of golf courses you can play, lakes that you'll love and regularly return to, and many of these features aren't trying to impress you, and that's what makes it special. Just a moment ago, I had mentioned about driving to some of the features that are around town. Now, let's talk about commute times. Let's talk about drive times. The average commute, according to recent sources, says that if you're living in Rogers, your average commute time is 17 minutes. If you're in the Bay Area or if you're in one of these other major metropolitan areas, you might be saying 17 minutes? I can't even get to the highway in 17 minutes, let alone all the way to work. Most average drive times in Northwest Arkansas is between 20 and 30 minutes to get to work and 20 and 30 minutes to get home from work. Of course, that depends on when you need to get to work. You could stop and pick up a Starbucks or a 7 Brew on the way. But an average of 20 to 30 minute drive time to and from your employer each day. Many of my clients have moved here from the Bay Area where they're driving an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, one way to and from work. Which brings us into our next section, my friend. We're talking about time. You've heard the phrase, time is money. Time is the only asset that we cannot get back. It's something that we all have a finite amount of, and we have to use it wisely. Even myself, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that the most valuable currency isn't money. It is certainly time. Recapping a little bit of the previous sections, shorter drive times, less miles to get to things that you enjoy, less waiting, fewer logistical headaches. Most people don't realize how much time they're spending just to compensate for the stress. Let's talk about driving the mountain biking trails, for example. I know, again, right now, I can load up my bike and it's 7 minutes to Kohler. Or I could load up my bike in 5 to 6 minutes and it's 10 minutes to Slaughter Pen. I don't have to figure that out. I have to go, well, I really have to plan my route around this traffic time or this daytime. Although I can, I know that in the afternoons in the summertime, there's probably going to be more kids out on the trails. And I might want to ride earlier in the morning to have easier access to the trails. But that stress of having to figure that out isn't something that I factor in. That, my friend, I would say is one of the biggest and quiet advantages of living here. That said, when your time costs more than your money, that is an enormous factor when we're talking about the difference between cost of living versus the cost of lifestyle. I'd like to talk next about who Northwest Arkansas is not for. And yes, Northwest Arkansas is not for everyone, and I do believe it is important to say. Northwest Arkansas is not for you if you thrive on nonstop nightlife, if status signaling is important to you, or if you're looking for constant stimulation. This probably won't be your place. But if you value clarity, calm, and intentional living, Northwest Arkansas feels like home very quickly. Maybe after watching this video, you might not be surprised anymore to know that many people don't move here to spend less money. They move here to spend their time better. If you're looking to move to Northwest Arkansas and would like to have an honest conversation about lifestyle and what the foreseeable future might look like for you, it would be my pleasure. And as always, it is a pleasure to put this information together for you, my friend. And now you know a little bit more about what life is like in around Bentonville. Thanks for watching.